our meeting to order. Roll call.
Ms. Mucko?
Here.
Mr. Walker?
I think he's on.
Here.
Mr. Clark?
Here.
Mr. Olson?
Here.
Mr. Erkins?
Here.
Great, thank you. Changes or additions to the agenda. I would like to suggest we move under other business item number B, the land purchase and lease agreement for aquatics facility, up under the approval of the minutes. Jim Walker is a firefighter, as you know, and he is on duty today. And so we're able to catch him at this moment, but in order to keep him on the line, we'd like to move it up so that he can participate fully in the conversation. So with that, do I need to entertain a motion to make the change?
So moved.
Do I have a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you. Agenda is amended, thank you. I would like to welcome Chase Erkins to the board. This is his first meeting. We did swear him in, so he's official, and this is his first day on the job. So thank you, Chase. We look forward to your expertise and filling in from where the commercial real estate side. So we appreciate your participation. Thanks. Oh, yes, and there we have our swearing in, so we can prove that, yes, you did take your oath.
I thought you ran a great campaign.
It was tough. Good opponents.
Bylaws amendment to add audit committee to standing committees. Do we need to make this a formal? Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, okay. As you know, we did have the audit committee last year, but we'll add it to the standing committees. And we'll do that next. So we just need to entertain a motion to amend the bylaws to add the audit committee as a standing committee. Motion,
So moved.
second,
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Audit committee is added. With that, I'd like to look at the appointment of officers. The officers that we are looking for is chair, vice chair, secretary, and treasurer. And the committees are audit committee, finance committee, marketing committee. At this time, we don't have any other committees at this moving forward. So those are the ones that we'd be looking for. I would like to nominate Jody as vice chair.
Second. That Jim.
Hey, Jim. I think we're gonna do all of them at once.
Okay.
Okay, thanks. Jody is vice chair, Chase is secretary, Anne Marie is treasurer, and audit committee would be Jody. Finance committee would be myself and Jody. Marketing committee would be Hi and Chase.
And I assume the chair will be Kristen.
Thank you. That would be great. Is there any discussion on those nominations?
Second.
I make a motion.
I thought somebody already did.
Well, he did, but it was premature.
All right, Jim. I'm gonna make that we approve the nominations as read by the chair.
Second.
Great. All those in favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you. I appreciate your willingness to step into these roles and look forward to working with you throughout the next year. Then I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes for May 29th.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Great, all right. Since we have amended the agenda, we will now be moving on to the land purchase and lease agreement for the aquatics facility. I'm just going to start off by saying that to summarize kind of the process on where we've been with this, we had the initial presentation to the board in November in accordance with our project proposal process. And they have been on our agenda for meetings in February, March, April, and May, and of course now on June. We've got the project page as mentioned in our work session on our website with FAQs that has the documents and financials for the public to see. We did due diligence, which consisted of research, including hiring CSL for a peer review study, and that report has been disseminated to the board and also published online. I also had the opportunity to have a follow-up call with Bill Kruger from CSL to ask some additional questions and dig into some concepts further. Something that we chatted about was, this concept of, well, pools lose money. And his response from his research was, the more focused the project and concept, the more likely to be profitable from his experience around the country. And ICA would be operating mainly as a rental facility, so less staffing costs and full-time employees, which would mean a more lean and focused operation. So that would attribute them to having a better revenue and cost structure than some of the others that have been studied. The pool and the deck space are the most important aspects of the facilities. Not a lot of frills that don't add much value to attracting those meets. So it sounds like really that pool and deck space is the most important in attracting swimmers. And the 50-meter pool will most likely often have the bulkhead in place and operate as two 25-yard pools with that third warm-up pool. So it would be essentially 3 25-yard pools operational for most of the time. Bill seemed to think that the revenues seem to be in line and reasonable with other facilities and on the low end of ranges that he has evaluated around the country. He also said that rental rates are at or below industry standards. His concerns was just, related to the cost structure and the construction. And I think that we're all seeing that now, just even in everyday life, as the construction costs are fluctuating and going up. So he said, once we, if we move down the road, would recommend reevaluating that construction costs and operational costs based on HVAC systems and the like technology. The number of meets and room night projections he felt were reasonable and at the low end of the industry averages, so it's possible to get more than what is currently projected in ICA's proposal. Comparable facilities, he looked at, rather than just looking at the bottom line of facilities, he looked at more of the parts and pieces, such as rates, meets, lesson programming, and compared those pieces to this project. Most private facilities were not willing to share their detailed data, so they looked at the parts and pieces and compared it that way, rather than finding an exact facility and comparing it to the bottom line. His experience, he's got a lot of experience. He's done 3 full feasibility studies this year, one most recently in Virginia for around the $60 million big aquatics facility there, and he did 4 last year. He has a 25-year history of looking at aquatic facility projects, so he has a lot of knowledge and know-how with this. The marketing, he feels they have a reasonable business plan and a straightforward marketing approach. ICA also appears to have an in with USA Swimming, who can do a lot of awareness for them and selling of them for getting meets here. Of course, the rates, features, and availability would need to be attractive for these meets. Bill also did have the opportunity to speak to Dave Duro over at the YMCA and felt that they were open-minded about the project. There are some events and programs that may shift out of their facilities, but for the larger meets, it's hard for the Y to shut down for, say, 3 days because it would affect their other programming that they have. And so it could be disruptive. Also, Southeast Boise, where the ICA is proposing this facility is built, is not currently served by a Y facility. The ICA team, he felt that they were familiar with the industry, and he did say some of the smartest and most plugged in people that he has spoken to don't get a big head. The projects that he sees that go sideways are the ones that don't have an informed staff and not a well thought out business plan. As far as return on investment for this, he said he considers this project a rare opportunity in his opinion and experience. He said where private sector is putting up a large amount of money and leading the operational side, it's usually the flip side of that, where the public entity is the one who's pushing it. He felt it was a good land site in an underserved market with a competent and knowledgeable operation team and reasonable and rational projections. So overall, he did say that he was skeptical at first, as he's seen a lot of these come across his desk and that many had fatal flaws or were half-baked. He said that you can tell a lot by the first conversation, and he felt the ICA had reasonable answers and a well thought out process. He doesn't see any fatal flaws with this project, but he does recommend that we ensure that we protect the district, and that the project would be consistent with their proposal. And we, I believe, have built that into the specifications for the agreement. So in my opinion, I feel this is a smaller, reasonable project for the district at this time with a low risk. We would have a 5% return on our money versus the 1.5% for our investments, and it could spur, while spurring room nights and millions of dollars in economic. With this project being, a cost to the district of less than 5 million, it doesn't materially affect our ability to participate in other projects in the future, whether by cash on hand or future bonding capabilities. And I look at this project as like a VC investing in a startup. And, you look at the team and you look at the business plan, and I feel confident that they've got what it takes to make this as successful as possible. So that is my summary of Bill's call, my own personal opinions, and I know that Jody and Mike have a lot more information and details to discuss. So I will turn it over to you guys.
Should I just
Yeah.
ask one clarification?
Yes.
You said a couple of times, you mentioned kind of low end. When they were using that term, that means conservative.
Conservative
projections, right?
side of
So-
the industry averages that he has seen nationwide.
Right.
So when Bill would give a range in his CSL report of, say, room nights between 12,000 and 20,000, the ICA is proposing, is estimating, is building in the low end of those ranges, say the 12,000 room nights into their program. Same thing with rental rates. Rates would range between, I don't have those off the top of my head, but see, between $12 and $20. ICA is building in the $12. So they're definitely, when there's a range, they're skewing more conservative side of everything.
Madam Chair, can I ask Michael a question? Well, a couple of questions, if you don't mind. Do we expose the district by undercutting other facilities in Boise?
Madam Chair, well, I'm not certain quite what you mean by undercutting.
Part of our statute says that we won't undercut the hotels. Would this in reference also be an enterprise in Boise that they're gonna charge less than other facilities? They're gonna be on the conservative end. Did I hear that right?
No, it's not that they're gonna charge less than other facilities, it's that the range they might be able to charge would be $12 to $20. They're assuming that they'll charge a lower rate, not they'll charge lower rates than other facilities, at least I think that's right, Madam Chair.
Yeah, it'd
Right.
charge market
No,
rates,
yeah.
but yeah.
Oh, they will. So
But
there
it-
won't be any competition. We won't be undercutting competition.
Do you want to address that? Sorry.
First off, I'd like to invite Ron and Nick up to have a seat if they'd like to participate in the dialogue. But one of the things, Madam Chair, members of the board, Mr. Clark, first and foremost, back in 2013, when I first started looking at this type of a project, the first person I went to was Jim Everett, who at the time was in charge of the Y. Pardon me. At the time, Jim was, and as far as I know, still currently today, Jim is very much supportive of this because he saw immediately the lack of available water. He said, water at the Y is never calm, and so there's always activity. And again, the first question to him was, I don't want to get sideways with anybody in the community. This is not in our best interest. The purpose is absolutely not to compete, but to complement. And if in any way, shape, or form that was going to happen, I wasn't even going to move forward. And Jim assured me absolutely not. It was needed.
But Jim's not there anymore.
That's absolutely correct. At the time, Boise State University had a very competitive team, and they too were very, very supportive. Dave Duro, Dave and I talked early on in this project. Again, I wanted to make sure that we were not going to be competing with the Y, and that it would be a complementary situation. That was an excellent conversation. Dave was also included in Bill Kruger's research with CSL. The focus is definitely making sure that what we do complements, not competes with anyone in the marketplace. Again, statutorily, that's just not something that we're prepared to do. So
First I thought of it was when the chair mentioned conservative rates. And when she said conservative rates, I thought of Michael. And Michael, tell me if the statute doesn't say that. Pat already did. I'm just wondering if we're going to be exposing the district.
well, if I might, just to finalize that thought, as the board knows, my approach to financials and to our budgeting is highly conservative. I prefer at the end of the year to present to the board that we're over in revenues, under in expenses, and that we have performed exceptionally well. In my conversations with Ryan, and I'll let him certainly address it directly, but the approach that they took was exactly the same, is to make sure that you don't make promises you can't keep, and make sure that the financial projections given are at least very reasonable, if not, again, very conservative. So directly on the rate structure, though, that we're not involved in operation, we're not involved in how it's gonna operate. So with that, Madam Chair, if I might, have Ryan address the pricing structure.
Sure, great.
Sure, thanks. Everyone for coming in today and talk to you guys and answer questions. And yeah, I mean, I think we got two different issues here, right? And one is, again, as Chris and Pat have tried to extrapolate, is that our financial projections are intended to be, just like we said, conservative. We want to make sure that we're not putting numbers out there that are so aggressive that it's unreasonable for us to meet the expectations of everyone else. And so, yeah, we've used a conservative number to make sure that our financial projections will work, knowing very well that if we were to charge more market rates, that only serves to increase our revenue and make our financials look better than what we have projected. And I think the secondary piece is that this is a complementary, not a competition to other facilities like the West Y or a city pool, right? Y isn't in the business of renting water space to clubs or things of that nature, right? They have their own swim teams. They have their own lesson programs. They don't typically rent water space like we're intending to do. They will continue to have their swim meets that their team puts forward every single year. We will have separate events. So we don't see it as competition. I think that both Jim Everett back in his day and Dave Drew currently have stated the same, that this is really a complementary. We're trying to provide a service that the Y does not provide, and we fully intend to be charging market rates.
Okay. Let me just say, I'm for this project, and the reason I'm going to vote for it is that I think it's good for the city. If your projections on heads and beds comes off, then we're doing well, and you're doing well. So I just wanted to say that to begin with. I have a number of questions, and people are looking at me like, don't ask any more questions. Steve Birch is not on our board anymore.
You're
But-
welcome to ask questions.
Yes. That was about it. I just wanted to make sure that we weren't exposing the district to, let me tell you about the lawsuits we had back in 2011. You want to tell them, Pat? Hoteliers were suing us. And why? We brought heads into beds, conventions. You would think they would love us for that. Not everybody. Those were the good old days. We made the media all the time. Was that 11 or 12?
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
But in any event, Madam Chair, Mr. Clark's right. I mean, we have a statutory limitation direction, thankfully, not to sort of compete with these facilities. And I think as Brian indicated, this facility is not intended to compete. It's simply to provide, sort of complementary or new services that aren't otherwise available in the area. So, as far as I know, Ryan, we're correct.
So Jody?
Madam Chair, I'd like to comment that the action really began at the February 18th meeting when Director Walker made a motion and I seconded to pursue the concept to potentially participate up to $5 million. And so we did a lot of operating due diligence, which is what you're talking about. And it's a business you're in. And we now have somebody who actually knows about real estate. There is also an enormous amount of legal work done between then and now. Public-private partnerships are interesting from a legal standpoint. Our private partners were interested to learn about some of those statutes. Certainly the purchasing provisions that the state requires, the key public purpose responsibilities we have, and many other items like that. But I want to assure the board that there was no shortage of lawyers.
Again,
Two of Ryan's team, Melinda is the managing partner, and one of her lawyers, and Mike and myself. So we're legal. The resolution is lengthy, and I don't think we need to read everybody all the whereases. But the basic scheme is we start with Director Walker's resolution that was adopted in February. And we do our due diligence and including hiring outside experts, lawyers, and operating consultants. And so we're now at this point where we are going to buy this property. The resolution calls for us to buy this property and enter into a 30-year lease. Both the acquisition materials and the lease materials will be public documents in our minutes of this meeting. Also, the resolution will be in all its detail. But basically, at the appropriate time, I'm going to make a motion that we approve the project as outlined, and that the staff and myself as a representing the board execute the agreements, make the payments. There's a threshold amount of any single payment that goes over 25,000, we run by the chair. But other than that, the staff and myself would have authority to proceed with the project.
Is there anything in the agreement that you wanted to highlight, either Jody or Mike? We've all seen it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my charge to walk through maybe a couple of the contingencies, sort of in the timing process, just as Mr. Wilson mentioned, presumably we approve it today, and we approve the form of the documents, we would likely be signing the lease agreement, roughly July 1st. And the board will have approved up to $5 million of authority, or whatever the number is the board approves. I think it's blank right now. But and then, we would spend the next month or so working through some of the planning and zoning issues and other related matters. I think the goal would be to purchase the property roughly or in early August. And one of the contingencies there is that the lessee would be able to demonstrate that they've got the money to do their portion of the project and have that available. After we purchase the project, there's still, or the land, there's another set of contingencies which are we then need to work through. You mentioned, Madam Chair, the procurement process, and so we're going to be working through the public procurement process. And once we finally got those final bids and the contracts are signed, at that point, that's kind of the next step where there's another check to make certain that in fact the numbers work and the scope of the project works and is consistent with what the board has generally approved. And the resolution, as Mr. Olson mentioned, basically delegates to him to kind of bless those finer numbers and make certain we don't have a $20 million project with $5 million of authority. So, so that's kind of the last step. And then once all those things have happened, let's say that's, early September or a year from now, September, but hopefully early September. At that point, then, the construction acquisition part of it would simply kick off and the process starts and disbursements are made, et cetera. So I think that's kind of the timing you get there. And then, the agreement itself, again, as you mentioned, everyone's had a chance to work through it. It's got all the standard provisions you would expect. Probably the most important one from other than those contingencies I mentioned from the district standpoint is that operationally, the requirement is that the lessee needs to operate it consistent, with our statutes, with, the kind of the public purpose requirements, et cetera. So that's probably I think the most important thing from the district standpoint is that, we ensure that we're discharging our statutory duties.
And there's multiple checkpoints along the way to make sure that if things fall by the wayside, we can get out. Even after we purchase land, then we would own land and not move forward with the project if you didn't prove that you had the money in order to complete the construction.
Right, so we've got that set of contingencies until we get there. And I guess other things that have come up in prior meetings, just to remind folks, are that we built into the agreement are things such as every quarter, Brian's very excited to come and, make a presentation about what exciting things are happening and how the project's going. So we built that in terms of the rate of return. You mentioned the 5% rate of return that we built in, which will vary depending upon how much money the district invests. As I said, otherwise, I think the contract is more or less normal. Although, again, as Mr. Olson mentioned, there's all the public purpose stuff, which I think was and public requirements, which we built in because obviously we're a public entity.
And with the, rental, there's also the incentive for bringing in room nights, so that we can encourage, to bring that economic impact into the community. Other highlights and I didn't have a chance right before the meeting to check your latest amendment. Did you get in the discrimination clause?
Not yet. Well,
Not yet, okay.
Yeah,
But some of those things you can work out
right.
after this? Okay,
Right, we've got another, whatever it is, week or so roughly, until we're expecting to sign the lease, and there'll be, I should say that, there'll be a few cleanup items. One thing we've been working with the district's insurance broker, I should say, to make sure we've got the right levels of insurance and similar things in the documents. So there are a few sort of smaller cleanup items which we'll be working through over the next week.
Yeah.
Question for Mike on the rent payments. I think in the lease it says, 5% of what we put out. Does that mean that it starts, say we spend the 1.9 million and buy the dirt, we're getting 5% of the 1.9 million, and then when we put the construction money in, it's 5% of the overall, or how does that work?
That's, Madam Chair, our brand new board member, perfect question. That's the right analysis. We've got it structured. So I think it's the month after, we would spend 1.9 million purchase the land, then that would start the kick off the rent process. And then, once we've expended the money for construction and the buildings, effectively we've got a construction, C of O or whatever it is one gets. I guess one gets one of those even for a pool. When we've got that, then the remaining amount kicks in. So it's sort of in two different stages.
And another one for due diligence on the land. Has a phase one and a survey been done, and are we assuming those costs as part of the purchase?
All those have been done. Phase one, survey, geotechnical. They've all been reviewed by all of our pool consultants. Property is wonderful, and those expenditures all came out of ICA's pocket.
Yeah. Oh, Madam Chair, I should point out, kind of related to that is, ICA has already, put in, sort of earnest money down payment, however one wants to characterize it. And so when we would purchase the property for the total purchase price, effectively, they would be reimbursed for that amount. So just to tie that.
okay. I know that was a question, so thank you. And in the agreement, they have to maintain it current condition, you know,
Right, so going to the kind of, I guess, the risk part of this, in addition to ensuring that we comply with all the statutory requirements, obviously the other portion of it is what risks does the district have? And, you know, the obligations are effectively, I'm sure they're thrilled to have all on the lessee. The lessee is responsible for operating it, maintaining it. There's a, you know, a covenant to obviously keep it in good shape and repair, to provide for, you know, capital updates as needed. All of those provisions are effectively put on their shoulders. So there is no, I mean, I think I can effectively say, Jody, that we really don't have any obligations other than the lease, other than once it's built, our obligation is to let them, let them operate and run it. I really don't think we've got any other obligations on our part, other than every quarter to hear their report and ensure that they're doing what they've committed to do.
and making sure that they're meeting our statute.
Right.
Right, yeah, public purpose. So the risk to the district has been mitigated as best as possible.
Yes,
Yes.
Madam Chair. Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, I mean, I guess the big question is, if they default, we own it. In very
At the
simplistic
end of the
terms.
day, yes, and you would then, ultimately end up presumably, selling it or leasing it to somebody else, or whatever that value may be. Again, the one, again, in terms of mitigating risk, part of this, is that, we're putting in a portion of the money to put the cover over the pool. ICA is buying the pool and all the other stuff that go along with that. And I'm not exactly certain what all that is, Ryan, but it's several $1 million and more. And effectively all the fixtures, all the improvements are ours. Whatever the equipment may be with the ICAs, but effectively they're paying $1 million, $1.5 million. I don't know what the number is for your pool itself, but whatever the cool state-of-the-art thing is you're getting, is technically going to be owned by the district. So again, if you want to look at it as a way to mitigate risk, is that we will own it without having paid for it, if you want to look at it that way.
How do you do that? I want to know how to do that. I want to do it without paying for it.
Director Olson is a really tough negotiator.
Oh, I know. I believe it.
No, if you weave through these statutes, the only way we do it is we technically own it. But they pay us 5% of every dollar we put in it. And that's the deal.
That's a good deal.
And Madam Chair, I would just like to say, I think this is one of the lowest risk projects we've ever evaluated. And it's a win for us and the stakeholders. It's a great project all around. And thanks, Jody, for all your hard work and taking out all the risk.
Thank you, Jim. It's been quite a while since February, but I think we had the right idea then. And I think the idea we had then was, this is what we're supposed to do. When they created this district and the voters in 1959, this is what the kind of thing they expected us to do. Well, usually when we build the center or something, it's a 20, 30, $40 million deal. We are out of that business for a while because of our performance during COVID and our existing bonding requirements. It will be a couple of years, Mike, before we're able to look at those kinds of projects. And we certainly get plenty of opportunities as long as developers are coming to town. So I think what Director Walker and I were looking at in February was, this is what we're supposed to do. It's bite size, it's it's 20% of the money we have in the bank. And so if it all comes out the way Ryan and his team proposed, which it appears to us it's going to, we should proceed. And unless you want to talk some more, I would move approval.
Yeah, if there's any other questions, Chase? Aye. Jim,
Nope.
did you have?
Madam Chair, members of the board, I just wanted to make sure that you were aware. I didn't share these necessarily with everyone, but there are 22 emails I received in support of the project from local constituents that see the need. They're either involved directly with swimming or they have kids that they want to get into programs and that sort of thing. And there are 22 of those folks that took the time to send to Kristen and I their comments. So I just wanted you to know that.
Thank you. Yeah, and have all those if you're interested, but just some nice comments from folks in the community. Excited about this potential project. Anything else from your team?
Unless there's other questions for us.
I made the motion.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we don't need, yep,
Just so.
And Walker, I think, seconded it. Didn't you,
So,
Jim?
Madam Chair,
Yep. I seconded it.
The only thing we need to clarify is in our form of resolution, I did leave blank the dollar amount up to, so.
Okay.
we'll just
$5
need to-
million.
Okay, great, so
Yeah.
there we are.
5 million, which is consistent with what the motion was in February.
Yes.
All right, and Jim seconded, is that correct?
Yep.
Okay, any further discussion?
So we need to fill in the blank number 2 for the land specifically.
It's actually the same number, sorry. I will fill that back in and have it formally done so you can have a nice executed copy, so.
Further discussion, all those in favor, say aye.
Should we do it by roll call?
Do we need to do it by roll call?
Oh, let's.
Okay, let's do it by roll call. Pam?
Ms. Mucko,
Aye.
Mr. Walker,
Aye.
Mr. Clock,
Aye.
Mr. Olson,
Aye.
Mr. Erkins.
Aye.
Thank you. So motion approved.
Well, Ward, thank you for hosting me today. I have to take off, as I told the chair. So that's one of the reasons we moved the vote up.
Thanks, Ty. Thank you, Jim. If you need to drop off at any point in time, just let us know, just pop off. Thanks for making the effort to join.
Thanks.
Yep. I'll stick around until I'm no longer available.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate this, and we look forward to working with you. Excited.
Yes, great, thank you. All right, back to the agenda, the monthly activity and financial report. Pat and Anne Marie.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Had a couple other notes there on what's good. For the, just making sure the board is aware that in July, we'll have visitors from Opera Idaho, Leslie Garrett and Mark Junker. They'd like to come and talk about some things that they're moving on forward with their own organization, Opera Idaho. It is great, albeit
Excuse me, Madam Chair, they're coming to the board meeting?
they are.
I know even less about opera than I do about swimming.
They've been working on some capital campaigns and trying to get a facility and wanted to come and share that with the board. So it is great to have everybody back in 200. This is exciting that we have the team back in action. I know last month we certainly did too, but it's great to have everybody back up where we belong. As Cody mentioned during his presentation that, and I want to make sure the board knows, during an IAVM call, International Association of Venue Managers regional call about a week ago, it's clear that we're one of the few fully operational convention centers, if not the only operational convention center in the Northwest. Canada is still shut down. And our region is basically Montana, Wyoming, Idaho, Oregon, and Washington. And so, well, places like Montana State, in the Civic Center in Butte, Montana, some others, while they're open, we're, as far as I know, the only convention center. So Again, as Cody already thanked the board, I too thank the board for your support. We are so well positioned, and I can't be prouder of where we are today. So, highlight we'll get to in a minute, but the STAR report for May, we're back to, in fact, the rates in May of 2021 are higher than May of 2019 by about $1. It's just totally surprising. Demand is still a little short, but considering rates were up over 2 years ago, and I'm sure you'll hear it from Ally and Carrie, but again, Boise is so well positioned. It's simply amazing. I was on a ULI conference call today about the fairgrounds, and again, it's interesting listening to some of the options that are looking at the fairgrounds. Some questions that were raised. The two facilitators, one was from Philadelphia, one was in Philadelphia, the other was in New York City. But it's not, is Boise a destination? It's Boise is a destination. So again, some really good news there. I'd also like to recognize a couple of staff members. Ally will be here 3 years in July. Nick Shoba came back after he worked here for several years, then worked for the chamber. He's been back. It'll be 4 years in July. Cliff, it'll be 11 years, September 1st. And Chris Lochner, Chris has kind of come and gone and come back and gone and come back. But collectively, he's been here about 24 years. So again, the reason I bring that up is just to speak to Cody's comments about culture, longevity, commitment to the team, but more importantly, the team's commitment to us. So I think that's worth mentioning. Cliff talked about the Smart Star Award, 3rd year in a row. So again, nice recognition from our industry. Chase was unopposed as the district's new board member. So as clerk of the district, that's my official duty to acknowledge the election process and that he was duly elected to the board. We continue to be busy. You've heard that already. And then 110 and 120 renovations are done. These are some of the last hybrid events. Again, I can't recognize the AV team enough. In all the months that we really didn't have anything else going revenue wise within the facility, it was their efforts that brought cash into the bank for us. So very creative. Dan Hill's our in-house expert, and he got a whole new degree in AV over the last year, and I'm really proud of him and the entire team. These are the visitors to the visitor center. Lots more traffic. In fact, yesterday I visited with the gentleman who's one of the people who works part-time for us out there. And he said he already had four visitors, 2 from New Jersey, 1 from Texas and 1 from Oregon, which, while New Jersey isn't terribly high on the list here, there continues to be a lot of visitors to the area, particularly from Texas and the West Coast. The numbers, again, continue to look strong. We've added an estimate for the aquatics facility into the cash position. The additional capital needs, again, I'll probably repeat this every month. It's not a one-time $6 million expenditure. It's about $2 million over per year over the next 3 years. So what we're trying to do is, again, just let the board know what we're anticipating for capital demands over the next 3 years and what that does to our financial position over that period of time. As I mentioned, though, we were only off, I think, about $60,000 in room taxes compared to prior, so, or compared to 2019. So, knock on wood, barring any unforeseen circumstances, the remainder of the year, and I'm going to look to Ally and Carrie to back me up on this one to present, that it looks very strong for the remainder of the year, in particular the fourth quarter. The hotel staff talked about it already. The numbers are going in the right direction. So demand and revenues, again, the revenues are coming back strong. As demand increases, should the rates hold where they are, I don't want to get too far out over my skis here, but again, the fall looks very, very promising.
With that, I guess it's maybe when we get to Anne Marie on the room tax revenue for the budget versus projected.
Oh, it's good. Yes, we've got the slide for that.
Okay.
And actually, Madam Chair, I probably should have mentioned, I can't remember who it was. Somebody asked me the question in our prior presentation about our ability to borrow. I never referenced it. I think maybe it was Mr. Olson. And I should have mentioned that, you know, technically we've got 3 years or whatever. We'd have effectively 3 more years until we would be able to eliminate our sort of, you know, our bad revenue, room tax revenue projections, which limit our ability to borrow. And so unless we otherwise refinance our existing debt, we're stuck with that limitation. So it's probably effectively 3 years from now until the really good numbers that Pat is talking about, we'll be able to take advantage of and borrow in, you know, significant amounts if somebody wants us to, you know, build whatever it is for 25 or $30 million.
And I believe that last year was it 5.1 or 5.5?
I want to say it was 5.1 and we projected this year, again, I will get there in a minute, but I think it's 4.4 that we estimated this year. And as I alluded to earlier, I think we're going to be exceeding revenues.
So hopefully the 5.1 year, it would be, last year would be the lowest year, not this projected, not this budgeted year.
As long as everything keeps going where it's going, I would.
So it may only be two more years.
Yeah, so that's where I was kind of wondering, you know, because I know that our projected budget for this year was lower than the year prior, but if things are continuing to look good, then hopefully the last year is the one that we.
I want to say before we get there, I think we're up over $250,000 over budget at this point, but I've got it on the
Yeah,
slide.
I know I'm premature.
No, that's good. You know, Anne Marie and I, well, we talked, but she's communicated with S&P, Standard & Poor. And they indicated, their representative indicated that we could, should things turn around dramatically. Now, I'm not trying to define dramatically necessarily, but should they turn around dramatically? Apparently there is a process that I don't fully understand, but you can petition in some manner to have your bonding capability reevaluated. So, but
Yeah, I think, Madam Chair, Pat, Anne Marie was probably referring to having the bond rating reevaluated.
yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and that's right. We have had clients do that, and absent the, you know, never rely on your lawyers for financial advice caveat. I guess I would say that unless we're actually going to borrow, it is essentially not material for the district because we have fixed rate debt. On the other hand, frankly, it's nice for the bondholders if it has a higher rated debt. So.
And we still retain, I believe, an A rating. We were A+, and then S&P, and I'll look to Anne Marie perhaps to address that when she comes on. But I believe we're still at an A. So I'm going to go through the convention topics fairly quickly because Allie and Carrie are here, and we'll touch on that. So with that, Anne Marie, you ready? You're muted.
It's a nice picture.
Still muted.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Where are you?
I am doing great. Now that I have my internet working, I was having a challenge during the work session and we found out somebody was hitting my router, and when somebody's trying to get Wi-Fi off my router, it just disconnects. So every minute it was knocking me off. So we got that fixed. Oh, thanks. So all great news. I mean, we had a great month. Year to date, we're about $1.2 million under budget. Some of that obviously has to do with the district being $944,000 under budget on the loss due to the very conservative tax revenues. But the revenues are rebounding, and we're managing to control costs. And so more of that money is going to the bottom line on the operations side, and you'll see that in a slide going forward. So next slide, please. Okay, so we are year to date $839,000 over budget on the tax revenues. Pat says he's conservative. I think I managed to beat him last year. We really anticipated that the recovery would be slower and not as substantial as it has been. I think too, the leisure markets come back, which is a direct result of the investment that the district has made in promoting that market to maintain the tax revenues. SG&A expenses remain below budget, mostly due to the timing of expenses. We should start seeing, as with the aquatics project, some of the expenses starting to increase as we move through that project. You can, can you go back one more, Pat? Okay. Here you'll see if you'll look in 2020, our tax revenues were at 5.5. Our 2021 budget's 4.2. You can see the blue, we're significantly ahead of budget on that one. And it's substantially better than the $125,000 we collected last year, which was one of the lowest months ever, I believe. Okay, next slide. Again, all really just great news. We events are picking up. We were up 4 from the prior month and 2 from the prior year. Our event days have increased by 38%. Room nights are up 54%. The day visits were down because in part because our room visits were up. Utilization increased 68%. Our revenues were up 139%, which was an increase of 151,000 from the prior month. Our investments in AV continue to supplement the revenue and was 29,000 over budget. We have implemented bonuses for hiring and retention through September in an effort to make sure, as Pat had indicated earlier, that our biggest problem may be lack of staff due to the increase in events. Our gross profit is positive, and our EBITDA was $92,000. The loss was $92,000 less than the prior month, and the net loss the same way. So if you look at our revenues went up 151, our net loss was less by 101. You can see we've are starting to pass more of the revenue directly to the bottom line, which is always a good place to be. And again, year to date, we're doing good. Our year to date loss for EBITDA is 2.5 million, less than budgeted by 0.3 million. So overall, a great place for us to be. Thanks for everybody's support. As you've heard over and over, I know, but it bears being said more than once, is that the fact that we were able to maintain our key employees and the staff during the COVID has resulted in us being in a very favorable position to rebound versus a lot of our competitors. Next, please. This is our square foot utilization. You can see if you look at the dark gray, which is our forecast and our actual, you can see June drops off a little bit, then you can start to see that it picks up, and that by October, we're actually higher than even 2018. So, and then November declines a bit, but overall things are looking very good, especially in that last quarter compared to historical. Next, please.
Anne Marie,
Here again, yes.
question for you on the utilization. Do we have Festival of Trees yet? in this?
No, very good point, Pat. I noticed it was not in there. And so that will make a huge difference in that number in November.
They basically take up, and as indicated, not only west, but they're gonna take up east this year. So
Oh, great.
that should definitely increase that number significantly. Sorry, Emery.
No, great point. Great point. Thanks, Pat. Again, monthly operating revenues of 260 are at our highest level since March of 2020. It is below budget, but as we all know, we're in the rebound. We had, when we did the budget, we had projected a slower rebound in the first half and did not project this fast of a rebound in the especially in the last quarter. So you can see the blue line above the dotted line. The dotted line's the budget. The blue line is the forecast, or sorry, the yellow line is the forecast. So you can see that we're actually forecasting that we're going to be above budget, which is a great thing. A couple of things going on in the finance side. We are looking at hiring a purchase manager later in the year. We're getting to a point where we think that the cost savings that can come from that position will offset the salary. And so it makes sense for us to do that to help lower our costs, especially when we're in such an increasing cost market. We're also looking at bringing back the payables position. We had cut that position back in last year with COVID, and we're with this growth, finding that our volume is increasing and we'll need to add that position. We're also looking at having a pricing meeting. You heard Cody earlier talk about having a meeting and trying to compare some of our costs with some of our competitors, and that meeting will be held next week. And we're moving into budgeting season. So finance committee people, I'll be reaching out to you for probably in August for us to be setting up in July and August to be setting up some meetings for budget reviews. So anticipate that, please. Next slide. Again, this is the road to recovery. The biggest thing to really, couple of things that happened over the past month was the CDC said that vaccinated Americans could stop wearing masks. Leisure travel has a pent-up demand. I was looking at an article and they were talking about that demand. 74% of Americans say they'll travel over the 4th of July, which is like the second largest travel in history since it's been recorded. So summer bookings are up in June, July, and August. The state's at a stage 4. The city also lifted the mask requirement in the group gathering limits in May. And again, the recruitment remains a top priority to be able to have the employees necessary to service the events. Next slide. Oh, well, I'm not sure what happened to that slide, but anyway, thanks for attending. I appreciate your time. Are there any questions for me?
Madam Chair, Anne Marie, when do you anticipate being back in Boise?
I will be back next Tuesday.
Pardon me?
I think she said next
Next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday, sorry.
Oh, good. Look forward to seeing you in person.
Would you like to schedule a time to get together in the afternoon?
Would you like to schedule
Time.
an appointment with her in the afternoon to
Oh.
get together?
No, I
Okay,
won't be in town.
okay, well, good. All right. Then it looks like I'm gonna pass this over to Ally and Carrie.
Any other questions for Anne Marie or Pat? We need to approve. Yep. Motion to approve the.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all those in favor? Aye.
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 Thanks, Jim.
Oh, Jim's still here.
So well, that's good. At this point, I'd like to ask Carrie and Ally to step up. About every quarter, I know we were off a little bit with COVID because there wasn't a lot of new news to share. I am so excited to have these two join us today. You've heard us talk about the market and what's going on and how excited we are. But I first really want to compliment these two for their personal efforts in leading their teams collaboratively, cooperatively. I don't know what adjectives to use because it's really been a huge team effort. I really like watching them work together. They're very supportive of each other and their teams. So again, I just can't speak highly enough of both and the efforts they're making on our collective behalf, not just Boise Centers for sure, but the entire area. So with that, you have, that should work for you there. So ladies.
Thank you, Pat. Madam Chair, members of the board, thanks for the time today. Carrie and I always enjoy pulling our details together over the last few months and giving you an update of where our teams are. Today, we're going to be going over a few items here. We're going to be touching on the leisure campaign. We've heard a lot about leisure activity today. Then we'll be moving on to group sales and taking a look at what's in the pipeline. Next, talking about our convention marketing campaign that's been in the works since last spring, and where we are moving forward with that. And finally, ending on our joint initiatives together. Starting with the leisure campaign.
Okay, well, I just wanted to say thank you again for having us here, and thank you for everything you've done this past year. I think it's definitely been brought up, but your support has really been valuable, so valuable to our community, and to being able to really jumpstart this leisure campaign early. I think we were one of the first to market last summer because of your support of the meetings recovery. So it could not, I don't think we'd be where we are without the efforts and the support. So thank you very much. So just a little recap. I know we've spoken, I think it was last or presented last fall over Zoom. But we did spend $175,000 last year on the leisure recovery, and that was on our Mission Boise and Room to Roam, just getting back into the market. And then we had to go out to bid as part of our Idaho tourism contract. Every 5 years, we are required to go out to bid for agency of record. And so we did end up moving to Duff Watterson, who's a local agency, very creative. And we've rolled out since January this new campaign we wanted to show you called Base Camp Boise. And this is for leisure. So it's really about your hotel being your base camp for outdoors, for cultural activities, and just coming back, to your hotel as a base camp. So with this campaign, we have since January spent $90,000. And it's really driving, all of these are digital ads, it's really driving to our Boise.org. You can see some of the results have really been significant. We've had over 800,000 people reached, which was 3 million impressions. And so this has shown up on native advertising, retargeting, TripAdvisor, Facebook and Instagram. We've done some things as well. Switch to some of the looks. So this is retargeting. That's when you've looked at Boise and then you go off somewhere else and it comes back. I know there's some new regulations that the company that we work with has a way of still being able to work around with permission-based retargeting. So these are appearing all over the place. We did do a staycation campaign on Boise Dev as well that has been very successful, a very female oriented skewed market as far as I think those looking to stay here locally over the past year with their families, since it's the most familiar to them. We also generated 32,000 click-throughs to our Boise.org site. So the website, I don't know if you saw on that first slide, it had a 26% increase in views and then 20% increase in page views, or web visitors, and 20% increase in page views. Now, Boise Air Service is another area that we're spending quite a bit of time, effort, and resources on. The Boise Airport is forecasting to have its busiest summer ever this summer. Their scheduled departing flights are up an average of 11%. June through August compared to the same time period in 2019. So we're kind of just forgetting about 2020, especially when it comes to air service at this time of year. The scheduled departing seats are up an average of 16% June through August, and that again is compared to 2019. So in 2021, the Boise Airport has an average of 83 departures per day. The airport began 10 new nonstop destinations this year. So we're up to 28 nonstop destinations, and that includes major markets like Atlanta, Austin, New York City. And so we also are co-oping with Idaho Tourism for the Atlanta, Austin, and New York City markets, where we're using a company called Sojourn. And this is where they'll track the visitor from looking all the way through their booking process. And we'll be able to track what they actually spend in the market here as well. So we're spending together $55,000, and it's driving to this landing page. And if you scroll further down, there'll be a lot of area attraction and cultural information as well. So we'll be able to track all of that, and that runs from June through September, so for 3 months. And then we're also doing some billboard advertising in Atlanta market. And then we are also doing some activations with the JetBlue inaugural flight. I'm actually flying down over to New York City next Thursday, coming back on the initial flight with Bill Connors from the Chamber and Diane Norton from Idaho Tourism. And we've had a lot of great community support around that flight as well. I just wanted to show you some of our reporting that our group sales looks at. These are called PACE reports. So it's really looking at the historical average, a 5-year average, and you can kind of see, and this is based on the date that we pulled it. So this was pulled middle of June. So the yellow is the PACE. My glasses on for this. The yellow is the PACE based on the same time of year last year. So you can see last year, some of 2020 events hadn't yet been canceled, so they're still showing up here. And we're a little bit behind still on the actual booking, which you'll see on the next slide. It's really just converting those contracts. So if we could, in the pipeline, the sales pipeline, that red for 2021 is showing all the activity, but it's not contracted yet. A lot of hesitancy. We're seeing more movement. You can see it on both sides. On the hotel side, we're using our master contract for the first time. It's a master hotel contract for a 2022 October healthcare event that will use multiple hotels. So it's making it easier for the planner. And then the third PACE report is looking at the monthly sales pace. So you can kind of see June and October really being standouts. June being such a significant month with Far West Soccer and pickleball happening right now. This week, we have over 2,500 people here for soccer, 10,000 room nights, and then pickleball, about 600 people as well. It's USA Pickleball. It's the fastest growing sport, I believe. And then you'll hear from Allie the significance of October. And most of that's all meetings and conventions related. There's also another report I didn't put up here, but that we're working behind the scenes very closely with the Boise Center team and some of the major hotels. That's more on a need basis. So we're looking at where there's some significant holes, so we can be very strategic in targeting group business during those times. So that'll pass this over to Allie.
Thanks, Carrie. And that report that Carrie just mentioned, sort of that citywide heat map, it's also going to show us not only where our need periods are, but also if there's, a month or a week where we can really drill down where the hotel's already booked with some in-house business. It will allow us to strategically then go after those non-convention local bookings and, don't miss out on those opportunities and hold out for a convention that we couldn't host anyway because the hotel inventory just wouldn't be there. So it's going to be really helpful, and looking forward to sharing more information on that. So shifting gears, we've talked a little bit about how pleasantly surprised we all are at the recovery, not only in Boise, but really statewide. This chart here is is reflecting the Idaho 2% lodging tax collections by month and by region. And what we see here is, Region 3, which is where Boise is, along with McCall and Mountain Home areas, we do lead the state in lodging tax collections. However, we took the biggest hit with the loss of the group and business travel since COVID. Leisure's definitely helped, really tremendously helped since COVID. And in fact, some regions have actually outperformed their pre-COVID tax collections. We've got those listed here, the Region 1, 6, and 7, and a lot of those are just the really tourism-heavy areas, Sun Valley, Yellowstone National Park. Boise's definitely benefited and from the leisure activity. I've been very grateful to have those people coming into town and enjoying the city. Just to kind of give an idea, pre-COVID, our highest occupancy tended to be midweek at the hotels, and that was really the business and convention travelers. It's since flipped to the weekends, where our weekends are full. We're starting to see the midweek traveler return. Again, kind of referencing the May 2021 Smith Travel Report, the STAR Report. Wednesday seeing about a 69% occupancy, whereas Friday is about 91% occupancy. And when we compare that to May of 2019, Wednesday is at a healthy 81%, and again, Friday at about 81% too in 2019. So we're grateful to see the return of convention business and just kind of continue to see the positive trends.
And can I just add to this one, if we projected 400,000 in June, we're looking at a very flat, not a negative at all, maybe even a positive 1% finishing the year with the collection. So, and that's kind of, that's probably very conservative, 420, or it might be more what happens with all the sporting events.
Yes. Yeah, no, thanks for bringing that up. So the state fiscal year, what we're looking at, they're July 1 to June 30. So we'll know kind of where the state falls here in the next month or so. Again, just kind of taking a look at a different metric here, where the projections for the state lodging tax collections at the end of this current fiscal year, ending even over their FY19. And this is, really great news. We've kind of reminisced internally that initial meeting with the hospitality community, how bleak things looked, and we were anticipating about a 3 or 4 year turnaround to recover, and it seems like we've pretty much done it in about 12 months. Again, just drilling down on where the visitors are coming from. These are the top cities of origin for overnight trips to Southwest Idaho. And at the top of the list is Boise. So we've got locals doing the staycations here. And again, no surprises surrounding cities and states round out that list. So shifting gears to our convention marketing campaign. And again, with the support of the district, we were able to get this campaign off the ground in partnership with the CVB and Digital Edge. We started working with Digital Edge in May last year, and our contract is up with them as of last month. Boise was among the first to market. We really covered a wide reach from a digital presence to emails. And the campaign was really focused on more of an awareness campaign, giving planners information that they needed, and that kind of evolved over time based on how we progressed through the pandemic. Initially, our focus was more on like the clean and safe protocols. We then shifted gears to giving clients and prospects information, destination information, just details on what they can expect when they hold their event here. And then as planners started to we started to see more sourcing and booking activity. That's when we got more aggressive with planning resources. Again, the campaign revolved around social, digital, and email, and we really focused on driving those users to our landing pages, whether it's for our incentive landing page, virtual fan landing page, and we also drove traffic to the CVB and Center websites. And overall, the campaign performed really well. We saw above average click-through rates on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Google Display. Even especially in recent months, our Facebook campaign performed really well. We saw a 100% increase in click-through rate month over month from March to April. Google, again, recent months, we saw a really uptick in that click-through rate, 32% from March to April, which doubled again April to May. And just to kind of give some reference there, an average LinkedIn click-through rate is 0.39%. And in the most recent couple of months, we saw 0.65% or 0.54%. So overall, we had above average engagement. The Digital Edge partnership will continue through July. They're going to be here for the summer FAM. They will conduct pre and post perception studies, which will be some really interesting information to collect from the people that attend the event. They'll also be on site to do some videography, and we'll get some footage that we'll be able to use into the future. This is just some examples of what our creative looked like, whether it was on our digital landing pages or pulled out of emails. And moving forward, we want to introduce you to Orange 142. So we're going to continue the convention marketing campaign at least through the end of the year. We are slated to work with Orange 142 starting in, well now, and running through December. This agency is based out of Austin, and their bread and butter is really working with the travel and tourism industry. About 85% of their business is with DMOs, destinations. They work with clients like Pittsburgh, Memphis, Indianapolis, Colorado Springs, so some heavy hitters in the market for sure. The team will be on site next week for a discovery visit. So they're just going to immerse themselves in the destination. Site tours, they'll be doing a site tour of the convention center next week, interviewing stakeholders and just getting a feel for Boise and how an attendee may experience our city and how we can market it to planners. So after their visit, they're going to craft our primary messaging pillars. Those are going to be focusing on things like our affordability, our safety, walkability, and really the plan is just to kind of weave those attributes throughout the campaign. A few of the things we really liked about Orange 142 is the fact that they've got a proprietary email database of over 300 million subscribers, and we'll have the ability to kind of slice and dice that any which way we want, kind of filter it based on region or demographic, market segment. So there's a lot of potential there, and we're hoping it's going to open us up to some new eyes. They also have a data management platform, which is really just compiles all millions of data points and helps us analyze it. And so it's going to give us an informed strategy as we move through the campaign, how we can better reach our target audience and be more effective in our messaging. And finally, they included a 50% recovery fund match on all paid media. And so this was a tremendous added value as far as added impressions, an email or display, some other areas there. We expect that it's going to be a pretty quick launch. The plan is for them to collaborate with Duff Watterson on some of the creative that already exists. We'll have a cohesive look, participating in a cohesive look with the leisure campaign. So we have a great partnership with the CVB, and our teams work really well together, and evidenced by some of our efforts here over the course of the year. We've had some great site visits. We pulled just a couple. PPMD is Parent Project Muscular Dystrophy. They've been here twice already this spring. And initially they were looking at us for their annual conference and have since expressed interest in a short-term booking for May of 2022 for cardiac surgeons. This one also will keep you apprised of. It has a really special story behind it. It's kind of evolved to become a potential case study, like launching a enhancement of transportation services, accessibility in the cities that they go to. And so the planner is in touch with a local here who is very close knit in the muscular dystrophy community. So this is an exciting opportunity and just a really heartfelt opportunity for Boise. We've had some great wins this year so far. The Brethren Church Denominational Conference will be here in July and pairing up with Council of State Governments. So with those two groups together, we're looking at almost 2,000 room nights for 1 week in July, which is phenomenal. Multi-year booking with Idaho BPA, Business Professionals of America, Astronomical Society in 2024, about 1,400 room nights. And again, we're excited to welcome back the Big Sky Basketball Championships for another 5 years through 2022 and 2026. And that was a huge community-wide effort to win that one. Finally, what we see on here is Conference Direct CDX 2022 Fall. We've mentioned probably over the last year or so that we're interested in hosting an industry event. So showcasing our destination and our convention center to clients. Conference Direct is a third-party company. Clients will hire them to prospect cities, source cities, undergo contract negotiations. And so they're usually they can be our initial contact before we actually reach the end user. So this event we've proposed for August of 2022, and it would bring in 50 of the third-party representatives with Conference Direct, 50 clients, and another 50 suppliers. So it's a really exciting opportunity for us, again, to show off the building, have these people experience Boise, and we've seen a great deal of success of closing business once we actually get people here for a site visit. This slide is just showing some of our joint travel for the rest of the year. It's not inclusive of all of our travel between the two teams, but these are a couple of the shows that we'll be going to through November. Included in here are a couple of FAMs between the Summer FAM and Treefort FAM, and also 2 sales missions, one to the Pacific Northwest and finally to DC. This chart shows, it's a comparison between 2021 to 2019, looking at the room nights and economic impact. Again, no surprise, we're getting off to a slow start in the first couple of quarters and still slightly behind in Q3 in terms of room nights and economic impact. But the real story here is we're off and running once we hit Q4. You see we're anticipating almost 12,000 room nights in Q4 alone, compared to just over 7,100 in 2019, and about 12 million in economic impact compared to 8.8 in 2019. So a huge recovery there. And we're pacing ahead of where we were even at in 2019, looking at 34 conventions that we've contracted year to date with an associated 16,000 definite future room nights. And that was as of end of last week, June 17. If we looked at June 17 in 2019, the team had contracted 25 conventions with about 9,600 total room nights. And even when we omit the COVID rebookings, we're still ahead of our 2019 performance. So really great news there. And again, strong Q4. October is holding steadfast with the room nights. We're over 3 times what our anticipated room nights compared to October of 2019. And 2022 is looking good also. Ahead on room nights, if we're looking at our tentative and definite room nights, and just under in terms of economic impact. And there's still plenty of time to be booking in 22. The majority of our events book within 1 year. So with that, we'd be happy to answer any questions.
I want to talk about what you guys are doing, even beyond 22 and even 23. I know going to get the Ladies of the Nile?
The Daughters of the Nile? Yes. Yeah, so the Daughters of the Nile, this is a June 2024 event. We bring in a couple thousand people, over 4,000 room nights, and it's really a great comparison as it's CSTE, the epidemiologist, but with food and beverage. So takes over the city.
It's using the neighborhood concept, so it would be the arena, both sides of the building here, multiple hotels. It's the women of the Shriners. If you're wondering, like, cause I didn't know either. So that's what the daughters. Yeah, super. They said that they like to eat and drink a lot. So they'll be spending some money in town.
And this is one, that the community is gonna be getting behind between support from the CPB, the district and the center, we'll be in connecting with you on how that looks. Some of these groups, these larger groups that will take over a city, there's some anticipation of reduced rental or complementary rental. But we definitely see the value in it just in terms of the room nights and the economic impact of the one event. So that one alone, 4,000 room nights, I mean, that's one event, that's a high end for a month of activity for the building, so. Come on that.
Are you seeing any industry recover faster than others as far as rebooking?
I mean, I think initially coming out of COVID, the comfort levels of more of those like essential services or the industries that were already operating, the comfort level for meeting is kind of there already. The convention summary stats that I placed in front of you before we came up here, there wasn't really any huge shifts in trends. I mean, we're still seeing RFPs and bookings from the education market segment. That seems to be our top performer.
Yeah, and I think there's definitely been proven a real need to still meet in person. We're definitely finding that, even if there's the hybrid component, which is great that you have all that available here as well. That's putting on 2 events for planners. They do value the face-to-face. It's just, getting back.
Is there an aquatic association you can go after? Try and bring them in and tie them in with opening up?
There's an association for everything.
Are you hearing meeting planners talk about the safety of bringing events to Boise versus other cities?
I mean, I think it's definitely on the top of everyone's list. On the top of everyone's list is safety. Affordability is big right now. Safety, walkability, and really mitigating risk. A lot of the groups that we're working with right now contracting are taking a really close look at their force majeure clause. And that's just across the board. It's not unique to Boise.
I mean, I'll say that for our FAM, we marketed it and within 24 hours had 30 applicants. And typically, I mean, 30 qualified applicants, we were able to really go through and they had to either have an RFP or what kind of business they could bring to Boise. And so we were pretty selective in getting the list down to 16, 17 plus 2 media. So we'll have about 19, 20. But typically, I mean, a 20-person FAM is large for us, and it takes us months to get there. And so I definitely feel the desire of Boise as a destination and the more tier 2 type smaller markets of wanting to get back and hear and learn more about it.
Anybody went up to the board already, or it's going?
There's a save the date and there will be an invite. So the center will host a Monday dinner like we have in the past. We'll do a site tour of the building and then host dinner with the FAM group.
That's July.
Monday, July 26th.
Direct flights impact yet? Too early to tell.
Yeah, I mean, it will be. I don't know if you've saw the report on the news with Sean speaking about how busy the airport is.
We're just adding flights. It's fantastic. I mean, work so hard to get one flight here and then they all just open in like a year.
Now it's, maintaining them now.
Right,
Let's
yeah.
keep 'em.
I think we're at the top of everybody's list as far as moving here. I'm sure that people are interested to come visit. Any other questions for Carrie and Allie? Thank you. It's great information. It's really good to see the trajectory of visitors and business and conventions.
Very encouraging.
Yeah.
Exciting.
Knock on wood.
These guys are doing awesome.
Yeah. Thank you for working together. It's it's great. It's great to see the collaboration and synergistic effect that you guys have. So
Yeah, it's really great. The teams together.
Madam Chair, can somebody get me that slide on sports?
The economic impact fund.
We'll get copies everyone. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you.
you.
Appreciate it. Well, and since we moved item B to further up in the agenda, there's no other business before the board.
Madam Chair,
Yeah,
real quickly, I did go back and look and the bond rating. We started out as an A, and then when they did the evaluation, it went to an A+. Then when COVID hit, they did a 2-step downgrade, so we're currently at an A-.
okay, thank you.
Thanks for making me out to be a liar.
Madam Chair, may I be excused from the July meeting? Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm out of town.
Meeting's adjourned.